excited to do this and have guest speakers come here and share with you their expertise and allow you to ask questions of them. My name is Mileva Rapaski. I'm one of the co-founders for the Phone Free Schools movement. I got involved in this space because of a personal struggle that was going on with my teenage son. He struggled with mental health issues associated with phone and social media. I started locally advocating here in my area, found one of our other co-founders, Sabina, through that. There was an article done about her family. We connected together and tried to advocate locally in our school district, quickly realized it was a national epidemic and wanted to figure out what we can do to try to change things on a national level. We joined the Screens in Schools group with the Fair Play Action Network and found Kim, our other co-founder, and the three of us went off on ourselves and decided to create this nonprofit where we've spent over a year just dedicated to really understanding the problem that exists and the ways that we can probably help shift the narrative and come up with solutions. And so I'm going to turn things over to Kim, who's going to introduce herself, and then she'll kick things over to Sabina to introduce herself as well.
Hello, I'm Kim Whitman. I live in Overland Park, Kansas, and I have two teenagers, so two high schoolers in the Shawnee Mission School District. And I've been advocating for boundaries around screens in schools for several years now. And I am excited to be in this nonprofit with Mileva and Sabina. Sabina, I'll turn it over to you.
Hi, I'm Sabina Pollock. I'm one of the other co-founders. I'm in Phoenixville, Pennsylvania, the same town as Mileva. And like she said, I share a very similar story with her. My children were greatly impacted by the use of phones in schools, and I started advocating locally to make changes around that without too much success. So I decided to dive in a little bit deeper on the national level and to try to figure out how we can begin to solve this problem. And I'm just gonna slide right into talking about our recently launched administrator toolkit. Hopefully most of you already have it. If you don't, you can go to our website, fill out the form, and we will send you a copy. The toolkit is pretty much a culmination of over a year's worth of boots on the ground research by the three of us. We spoke to superintendents, principals, teachers, medical experts, researchers, other organizations, trying to learn how phones were impacting the school day and what some of those solutions might be. We spoke to administrators who had implemented successful phone-free policies. We talked to others that were still trying to get it right. And we even spoke to those who weren't quite ready to take that leap and to try to figure out what was holding them back. We learned just as much from the ones that had done it successfully than we did from the ones that hadn't yet achieved that success. So they told us what worked, they told us what didn't. And by the end of that research, we kind of saw a very consistent pattern emerging. And what they were all telling us overwhelmingly the same things. You need a clear and concise bell-to-bell policy. And the Phone Free Schools movement really holds steadfast that it has to be a bell-to-bell policy in order to be successful. You need communications to all stakeholders. And engagement, and strict and consistent school-wide enforcement of the policy. So we go into greater detail on all of these in the toolkit. So the toolkit was designed to help administrators engage all stakeholders, to minimize pushback, and to facilitate a smooth transition to a phone-free school environment. The Phone Free Schools movement is here as a resource. And we're here to equip you with the tools that will hopefully empower you to take this next important step. So what's included is supporting data, implementation materials, and stakeholder communications. And we also include a distribution guide because there are various stakeholders involved in the success of the new policy. So we clearly outline who should get what information, and you'll see icons used throughout the toolkit to indicate who should receive what. So the parts of the toolkit are supporting data, and these are the tools that you can really use to gain support. So we have a research infographic we packaged up all the research you need to answer the question of why. Why is moving to a phone-free school environment so important? And then the benefits. We talked to administrators who have successfully implemented phone-free policies, and they consistently were reporting the same results. So this outlines what those results were, the benefits that they found, and it answers the question of how is the school day going to be better for not only your students, but your teachers and all your staff as well. So next we have implementation materials. So we include a rollout timeline in that. So for example, when do you communicate to your stakeholders? When do you onboard your staff? What happens after the policy is rolled out, et cetera. And next is a very comprehensive implementation guide, and I'll just go quickly through some of the things that we highlight in there. So we define what phone free actually means, what is included in the policy, how to communicate to the stakeholders, how to handle enforcement, consequences, what to do when, exceptions to the rule for medical circumstances, what kind of storage options are there that are successful and that our research has shown to be successful. And we talk about, assessing the procedural changes that might need to happen when you're implementing a new policy. And then I can tell you that probably one of the things that we get asked for most is a model policy. So we took all our research and came up with a foolproof policy for you to use. Stakeholder communications. So by stakeholders, we mean parents, we mean students, we need staff and teachers, all very important to getting the policy implementation successful. And so we include letters to stakeholders. We've drafted letters that from talking with different stakeholders we feel are going to be the most successful at really reaching them and reaching what they might care about. And then we've included frequently asked questions. So this is really important to help you minimize the pushbacks from the start. We've pretty much heard it all, and we've tried to leave no stone unturned for you. We want all these questions to be answered before the policy is rolled out. And this will really minimize the pushbacks that you get from different stakeholders. And then common pushbacks. This is meant to equip your teachers and staff. It's very important that they're equipped to be able to answer questions regarding and pushbacks regarding the policy. When it comes to the policy, everyone really needs to be speaking the same language. And the last thing is the surveys. So we've drafted pre and post surveys, and these were designed to help you gather school-specific data. So you can use it to tailor communication. It allows you to gather concrete data so that you are equipped to communicate to your stakeholders before the policy is rolled out, as well as after the policy is rolled out. And those letters are able to be customized if you choose for any school-specific information that you want to include to help engage your stakeholders. So I'm going to turn it over to Kim and get us to the meat of why we're here.
Thank you, Sabina. I'm honored to introduce our guest speaker today, Tabitha Branum is an experienced leader and motivated educator with 25 years of experience in Texas, addressing the needs of students through research-based and innovative programs and practices. In August of 2022, Branum was named Richardson Independent School District's 20th superintendent since 1900. RISD has a district-wide bell-to-bell phone-free policy, and in the school year 2023-2024, 5 of their campuses utilized Yondr as a tool to facilitate the policy. In the 24-25 school year, 3 more high schools will also be utilizing Yondr for a total of 8 campuses. RISD serves portions of Richardson, Dallas, and Garland, Texas. It operates 55 campuses and serves more than 37,000 students. Over half of their campuses are Title I, and they are home to 76 different languages and dialects. Tabitha is also a member of the Phone Free Schools Movement Advisory Board. Thank you for being with us, Tabitha.
Thank you all so much for having me, and thank you to all of those that took time out of your day to connect with us today. And maybe it is that you want to lean in and have further conversation with your local districts. Maybe you're personally trying to determine what are your next steps in having this conversation. But no matter what we hope your outcome is, what we hope you can take away is it is possible. It is possible. And I know when I first engaged in this conversation with my community, I wasn't sure if it was possible. I was the interim superintendent at the time. I was not even named superintendent. And I was reading my end of the year climate surveys. And this was in an April timeframe, April and May. And I'm reading comment after comment after comment from my secondary teachers. And it was just this overwhelming concern around cell phone use, the distractions of cell phones, students' inability to put away their cell phones, teachers feeling like they are in a constant battle with their students. And I sat there and I was in bewilderment because at that time we had a cell phone free policy, but if I'm real, we probably had not paid attention to it. It was not even something that was discussed and had not been discussed in my 10 years of being in the school district. So as I'm reading these teacher comments, I knew I had to do something. And hopefully in your part of the world, you're in a different place with teacher pipelines, but in the Dallas Metroplex in the state of Texas, we are still struggling to have a strong pipeline of educators. And retaining every one of our teachers matters more today than it ever has. And if enforcing a policy that we already had in the books was something that I could do, a small step that I could take that would help our teachers feel heard, seen, and supported, then I knew that was a conversation I had to be willing to lean in on. So I resurrected that policy, rewrote the policy, strengthened the policy, provided some more guidelines for our staff with the policy, and brought that forward to our board in the spring. Everything that was just shared, and I'll go through this presentation, and I just get excited about telling my story, but everything that we're about to share with you are what we have learned in our last 3 years. And if you'll go ahead and hit the next slide, I just want to share with you a little bit about my why. I'm going to share a little bit of data. Again, sometimes seeing, and we're a very large district. My high schools, we have 4 high schools. My smallest high school has 2,300 students. My largest has 3,100. We have 8 junior highs. So again, we really kind of are a mirror or demographics. 60% of our students are economically disadvantaged, 13,000 emerging bilingual students. So we really match the demographics of the state. And if we can figure out how to make this happen here, I know you can as well. I'm going to talk about how we've evolved in the implementation of our cell phone free bell-to-bell policy from year 1 all the way to where we are today. And then some of our next steps. Keep going. So again, we knew when I was reading that end of the year climate survey, and again, I'm a mom. I had, at the time of this conversation, I had a freshman in high school And I was always perplexed that even as a mom, I would get texts from my daughter all day long about all kinds of different topics. Sometimes it was about homework, or sometimes it was about cheer practice and what time she'd be done with cheer practice. But a lot of times it was, I can tell she was just distracted in class and not paying attention to what's going on in class. We were seeing an increase in and again, I hope for each of you that this was not your reality, but we were seeing, whether it was social media threats, social media bullying, we were seeing students who had an opportunity where maybe something was said at the beginning of the day through cell phone and Snapchat and all those other tools. It would escalate and escalate, and suddenly they were agreeing to meet at some location to have some kind of physical altercation. We were seeing those increase. We were seeing our students using their phones to video one another and compromising, whether it's in the locker room or, in some other environment, with it in purpose of just humiliating or using it as leverage in some way. And then, as I mentioned, it was what we were hearing from our teachers and the voice of our teachers. And I began to really research what our medical doctors, what our psychologists, what they were saying about cell phones, and the fact that even as adults, we are drawn to touch our cell phone, to pick up our cell phone, to check on our cell phone every 3 to 4 minutes. And y'all, we have fully developed frontal lobes. So if we are struggling and we recognize that level of addiction, then that must be true, if not even worse, for our students. So understanding the research around how cell phones impact the brain, and then just visiting our campuses and trying to understand the reality of what we were asking our teachers and our principals to do. So as we were having this conversation, and as I was resurrecting the policy and rewriting the policy and recommitting to the policy and garnering the support of my board, which all of you knows, getting 7 board members to say, yes, we're going to support you, knowing that this is not going to be the most popular policy you put forward. While your staff and your teachers may celebrate it, you're going to have a whole lot of students that are not unhappy, and you're going to have some parents that are concerned. And so one of the things that we researched were what tools can we put in the hands of our principals? Because just to have a policy and to have guidelines, we already had that in place, but those were not doing the job that they needed to do. We were not supporting our leadership in the way that we needed to support them. What other tools might be useful? And that's where we came across the Yondr pouch. And I'm sure many of you have heard or seen the Yondr pouch. It first actually existed, comedians used it. If you were to go and be a part of one of their events, they would often ask their audience to put their phone in the Yondr pouch, because they didn't want their material being recorded and being stolen and used by other comedians or available on social media. And Yondr at that time was in one other high school. And so we talked with that high school, we visited, and we were amazed by what we saw. And so a company tool to our policy was the use of a Yondr bag. And in year 1, we piloted it at one of our junior highs, as well as then moving our policy forward at the rest of our secondary campuses. You can hit the next one. So what did we see the outcomes? How did I message this to the community? How did I message this to the board? And really it came down to kind of this slide right here. What did we see as our anticipated benefits? We want to maximize our instructional time. On the heels of COVID, we know face-to-face instruction, we know every minute of instruction matters. We have gaps that we know we have to accelerate. So more now than ever, every minute of instructional time is valuable, and we don't need to be fighting with kids with cell phones. So instructional engagement, face-to-face student interaction. Again, we heard over and over again that kids don't know how to talk to each other. I would hear even from my own daughter that you're walking in the hall and, someone accidentally hit someone with a backpack. Instead of just saying, hey, I'm sorry, it erupts into something that is so much larger. At lunch, again, I remember, and I know I'm old and it was a long time ago, but there was a time when at lunch we talked to each other. And now our kids with cell phones, they're often talking through Snapchat. They might be sitting at the same table, but they're actually communicating through Snapchat. So how can we increase? We know the value of communication skills. And so how can we increase that interaction, both with students as well as students to staff, and maybe even students at home with parents? Academic success, teacher retention, all of these were what we believed were going to be anticipated benefits. We also wanted to see a decrease in social media distractions. We wanted to see a decrease, and we believed we would see a decrease in student conflict. That ability for something to escalate via social media, we thought hopefully we would see less of. So again, here has been our timeline. We strengthened our cell phone policy. We created administrative guidelines. We had our board support that. We piloted with one Yondr campus, one of our junior highs. That junior high was probably my most challenging junior high in terms of student behaviors. That principal was adamant, I can't implement this without it being all consuming. I need a tool. And when a principal says they know they have to have something, then it's my job to create or to eliminate the barrier, to create the resources to make that happen. And luckily, our board supported us in that. We saw such incredible success at Forest Meadow Junior High that we had 4 other junior highs and 1 high school that added it for last school year. That was so successful that for 24-25, my other 3 high school principals have all asked to use it. I'm going to speak for just a second here on the Yondr pouch, because I think it's important to note you can do this work without the Yondr pouch. The Yondr pouch is just a tool. What the Yondr pouch does is it truly allows your campus leaders to have a system, your teachers to have a system. Without it, what we found, and again, this was our reality, maybe not yours, is that when you have 250 teachers at a high school campus, you might still have that teacher with there's 10 minutes left of the classroom, and maybe students are doing some independent practice. You know what? Go ahead and take out your cell phones. You can use them in the last 10 minutes of class. Then they would go to the next classroom, and that teacher was following the policy, and then it became a tug of war. It made it, it pitted teachers against one another, trying to keep cell phones in backpacks during passing period or during lunches was just, it became a battle that our principals couldn't fight. They would do cell phone sweeps, and they would collect cell phones, and they would have parents come and pick them up. And it just became so much a part of their job. Where with the Yondr implementation, it really was an easy, you don't see them. The phone is in the pouch is in your backpack. There's no excuse that you're going to ever have a phone. A teacher doesn't have an unlocking mechanism in her classroom, so she can't unlock the phone. They can't have them at lunch. They can't have them in the hallways. So it just reduced that ability for there to be any kind of individual interpretation or enforcement of the rules. It's consistency. And we know more than anything, our junior high and high school students need structure. They need consistency. They need to know, here are the expectations. So those are just some of the considerations of why Yondr versus non-Yondr. And you can hit next. So it's all about the why. And what I love, and I wish I would have had the toolkit that these amazing community leaders have created, because a lot of this we were having to kind of develop as we went along. But really, it is all about the why. And for us, it was about, in Richardson ISD, we are trying to create a safe, respectful, and responsible environment for our students, staff, and our community. Ultimately, we're about learning for every child every day. And we are going to create the conditions in which our students and our staff can thrive, and they can be safe, respectful, and responsible. I was very overt with addressing safety and security. Again, I was a mom. I had a high school student, so I know our parents can jump to, what am I going to do if there is an active shooter situation? And I just want to know that my child is okay. And so we addressed those safety and security concerns. We were very proactive. We addressed, for example, we have 4 I know what to do days in Richardson ISD. And on those I know what to do days, we practice our drills. More importantly, we address and we practice how we're going to communicate with parents if that situation was to not be a drill and it was going to be an actual event. So we let our parents know, and we keep them updated on that drill as we go through the day. At the end of the day, our parents get a debrief of, this is what your child experienced. These are the questions that you can ask at home. Here's the follow-up that you can do at home, because we wanted a model, and we knew we had to build trust with parents that if we had a situation in which it's our worst nightmare, that they were going to have some way to receive communication. We were very overt around the why of physical and social emotional wellness, helping our parents, helping our community understand that maybe while your child is in a very healthy place and you're finding balance with cell phones in your home, ultimately it's our responsibility to help grow 37,000 students. And that we were seeing a growing trend of wellness concerns for our students. And again, this was one strategy to help address that. And then again, day-to-day communication, recognizing that as parents, we've become a little bit spoiled, that at any point I can send a text to my child and just, remind them, or just wish them good luck on a test, or just to hear their voice and to know that things are well. And so really reinforcing that, we are a one-to-one school district. Our students have Chromebooks, and there's a thing called email. And so here's how you can email parent, student, here's how you can email. And this is a great opportunity to practice written communication skills, reminding our parents we have this amazing thing called a front office. And that when we were in school, our parents had to call the front office. And so here's our front office staff will make sure that they get information to your child in a timely way. We will call them down if you need to check them out. And we coupled that with really strong customer service training for our campus front office, so that when our parents called and they had to get that message, or they had to pull their child for a doctor's appointment, that front office staff was welcoming and inviting, and our parents knew that they could trust that. And then again, it's training. It's communication. It's constantly, not just once at the beginning of the year, but throughout the year, having that communication, providing that training to both parents, staff, that front office, that will make this, like any other change, a successful change implementation. So just a couple of highlights. This is our end of the year climate survey. And so this was focused just on our secondary campuses. And so we have roughly about 16,000 secondary students, and we have about 1,200 secondary teachers. And so you can kind of just see some of the highlights. It's really interesting to note that before Yondr, teachers and students and parents will say, we don't need the Yondr pouches. They're expensive. We can do it without that. In a minute, you're going to see the difference between our non-Yondr and our Yondr campus. But for me, the most important metric is this last line. I'm able to use more time on teaching and learning in my classroom. And we have 88% of our teachers have found that as a result of this work that we're doing, they are capturing instructional time back. We actually went a step further and quantified this. And on average, they're saying 10 minutes, we're on a block schedule. So in a 75-minute class period, our secondary teachers are capturing back 10 minutes of instructional time per class period. In a course of a day, that's anywhere between 40 and 50 minutes. That is everything. That is really a big part of what this work is about. You can keep going. Again, I have observed less classroom management. Y'all look at this. Look at that first line. 97%. 97% of our students, our teachers and Yondr campuses said they are not having classroom management issues anymore, and they're not having to deal with the phones. The effectiveness of the cell phone free policy, again, in that last one, I'm able to use more time on teaching and learning in my classroom. Those that are using Yondr, that number is even higher. Again, because it's not left up to interpretation. It's not left up to the individual kind of beliefs of that teacher. We're saying this is how we do things in that building as a result of the Yondr. You can keep going. Yondr campuses, again, approximate increase in teaching and learning time. You can see more than 10 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes, less than 5 minutes, or they might have, a lot of people would put they even found more time. So again, this is compelling. When I show parents this data right here, it is compelling. They, if nothing else, they hold us accountable for student learning and student growth. And if maybe sacrificing not having that just-in-time textability with their child means that they are having an opportunity to engage more in learning, then our parents, we're finding over time, are willing to make that sacrifice. Keep going. And I hate to bother you with a bunch of, but I just thought it was really important for you to see just some of this, like, this is real. This is real information. Again, very, I believe the Yondr system as a tool to enforce RASD's cell phone free policy helps prevent discipline issues. Again, you can kind of see, because again, it's not that teacher then having to get in a battle with the student because I just shouldn't see your phone. And if I see your phone, I'm going to go ahead and take it. Okay, keep going. Now, I'll be very real with you. Year 3 of the cell phone free policy. If I have a group of seniors that are on my superintendent advisory group. When I meet with them in small group and I have individual conversations, in time, they will admit it's the best thing that ever happened to them. They will talk about how powerful it is that at lunch, they might actually be playing a game of Uno, or they might be having a conversation, or they're actually looking at each other in the eye in the hallways. Kids are not staring down. Our kids don't bump into each other anymore because they're actually paying attention to what's happening in the hallway. They will say it's a great thing. I have yet to have a climate survey. I have yet to survey or talk to kids at large where they think what we're doing is great. So I'm going to warn you. We're adding 3 high schools, and I have a student petition right now at one of my high schools that says, hey, how about if we have a 3-strike rule? If we violate the cell phone free policy after 3 times, then we have to use the Yondr pouch. So students, I love the materials that this toolkit has created. We're actually going to be using some of it to continue to help our students understand why it's better for their brain, why it's better for their social emotional wellness. But in the end, they're going to be your biggest battle. That frontal lobe is not fully developed, as we know, and this means so much to them. It's part of their identity, that trying to imagine what it's like putting it away and putting it in this Yondr pouch and not literally being able to access it till the end of the day, it feels overwhelming to them. Now, once they're in the hustle bustle of the school year, you won't hear from them again until you ask them how they feel about it at the end of the school year. So our students, we have not yet found a breakthrough that our students say, yes, we agree. But when you talk to them individually, they really do recognize the benefits. Keep going. Again, my Yondr kids really even more don't like it, because if I'm in a non-Yondr campus, they are much more creative with getting out that cell phone, and they know that teacher that will let them have it out without, having consequences and those kinds of things. So my Yondr campuses, my students are even more adamant about their concerns with the implementation. Okay, keep going. So really, I think what I would want you to take away, and I shared this with our phone free school movement team yesterday. This year, we are going to be doing a program evaluation where my accountability and continuous improvement team are going to be looking at student performance, student attendance, and our cell phone free policy implementation, and trying to identify, is there any correlation? What I know is that the increase in instructional time has led to decrease in teacher turnover. My secondary teacher turnover rate in the prior years, where it was at 19%, 17%, this year I'm at less than 13% going into this school year. And our teachers are saying it's making a difference. Our student discipline at our Yondr campuses, we saw decreases in student discipline, everything from fighting to cyberbullying and those types of issues are from 15% all the way up to a 48% decrease in discipline at our Yondr campuses. We still saw decreases in those at our non-Yondr campuses, but it was not as significant as our Yondr campuses. But for me, the most powerful anecdote that I would share with you is what happens when you walk into the building. The culture of our buildings is changing. The culture of our students and their dependency on their cell phone, and I have to have my cell phone during the school day, that is changing. Our students are having conversations. Our students are talking to one another in the hallway. They are looking at one another at lunch. Disagreements are not escalating to a place where it ends in some kind of violent, outburst of some kind. It's just our schools, our campuses are calmer, and our students will share and report that as well. And then we're going to continue to communicate the benefits of less screen time to our students. Thanks to the work of the toolkit, we're going to be embedding more advisory lessons where we message that work on a more regular basis with our students. So that's probably one of the most significant changes. I'm going to stop talking at this point because I'm sure you all have a lot of questions. You can go ahead and go to the next slide. I think that was it. Oh, I just wanted to share Forest Meadow. Again, this was my very first campus. They just finished year 2. 100% of their teachers observe less classroom management issues. 100% of their students are more attentive. The implementation of Yondr, 100% of the staff agrees or strongly agrees. I'm able to use more time, 100% of the teachers at Forest Meadow. Again, this is an 800 student junior high, 7th and 8th graders. 80% of the students are economically disadvantaged. We were really struggling at Forest Meadow, and what we've done with our cell phone free policy and the Yondr has been game changing, and I believe life changing for some of our kids. Okay, keep going. And I think keep going. Sorry, I just said all that. Okay, now I will be quiet and happy to take any questions. I hope you can hear I'm going to be very real about where we were, where we did great things, where we struggled, what we would do different if we had to do it all over again. And so happy to help in any way I can.
Thank you so much, Tabitha. That was a fantastic overview. We're going to move into the question answer phase. We have almost 20 minutes for that. So we are going to ask that you either raise your virtual hand, so stay muted and raise your virtual hand, or feel free to put questions in the chat. So we already have a couple in the chat that I will go ahead and address, and feel comfortable asking questions of Tabitha and their program, as well as if you have any questions of the Phone Free Schools movement team and the toolkit. But the first question that Karen had asked is about Yondr. Somebody already responded that it is $30 a pouch. They moved from a subscription system to a purchase system, so you don't have to pay yearly. Instead, once you buy the pouches, you own them. They are a tool, a wonderful tool. We see the tool as a necessity to utilize to change the culture. That could take 4 or 5 years to change the culture, but our hope is that at some point you don't need a tool, that it is just expected that phones aren't a part of the educational environment. So a couple alternatives, less expensive alternatives that we have seen are, of course, phone lockers, locked phone lockers. They tend to be less expensive. And as far as location for those, they can either be in the first hour classroom or the last hour classroom. So students stop by the last hour classroom when they get to school, and then as they leave, they can get their phone as they leave the school. Another option we've seen are padded envelopes labeled alphabetically in baskets. And students put their phones in those alphabetical envelopes, and then those are stored in a secure location. We've also seen that with pencil pouches. I am going to go ahead. I hope that answers your question, Karen. If not, let me know. Great. I'm going to go ahead and hop to Beth.
Thank you. We are from Collegiate School in Richmond, Virginia, and we have a high school of about 580 students, and we're implementing it this coming year. We've communicated to families and students in the spring so they know it's coming, but now we're in the figuring out like, okay, what's this really going to look like? And we're going to be doing cell phone lockers. But I guess my question is like when you say bell to bell, like if they arrive early to campus, do they have to put in the Yondr bag, or at the first bell is when they put in the Yondr bag? Because we have students who arrive campus early to meet with teachers just because of their rides. So there's a part of me that I don't want to like kind of punish those kids, but I also see the benefit of them not having cell phones and interacting with each other. So like I was just curious as to like at what point of the morning do they have to be in the Yondr bags, or what would your experience with that has been?
Yes, ma'am. So for us, if if it's a Yondr, the minute they walk through the doors of the campus, we have kids that get, early for football practice, or band practice. I think our band starts practicing, like at dark 30. I mean, it's like 6 a.m. When they show up to band practice, our band directors know our kids. So the Yondr pouch is assigned to the student. And one of the reasons why, and again, every context is different. For our community, it was super important, and our parents de-escalated a lot when they heard that their phone was still at least on the person of their student. That I don't know why, but psychologically there was just I paid for that cell phone. I want my child to at least have access to it. So having the Yondr pouch is assigned to them when they walk through that practice room or on that practice field or through the doors of the building for tutoring. That pouch is out, they put the phone in, and a staff member is the one that locks the pouch. And so that is how we have approached it. And again, if something changes, while they're at tutoring, or what our students know that they have access to that email, and they can email a parent at any time, or they can also use the front office. And we have staffed our front offices a little bit early to make sure there's always a go-to person if that communication needs to happen, or, they need to use the phone in the front office or whatever, that's available to them. So that was just a system. It doesn't have to work that way. That is just what we found has worked for us. Otherwise, again, what we didn't want is depending upon what class they're in, some teachers remember to put it in the pouch, the others don't. Kids figuring, kids are very creative. And so that's just this is the system, and we're not going to argue about the system. And kids, believe it or not, by about the third week of school, there's no more questions about it.
Thank you, Tabitha. Reagan?
Hi, Tabitha. I actually spoke to your principal at Lake Highlands as we started exploring this back in the spring. We are moving forward with being phone free at our campus. I have 1,500 students on my campus, but we have not gotten the approval and the full support for the use of Yondr pouches. And it's been, presented as a tool to support a policy, and we feel confident that we'll get there. But in the meantime, we're just going phone free. And so I'm curious about the 11 campuses that you had the new policy, the stricter policy, all of that, but they didn't have the pouch, the tool of the pouch. Probably the most pushback, it's been sent to parents. Of course, the kids and they knew this was coming. This conversation started back in the spring. A letter was sent in May that there was going to be policy changes, but then the actual policy went out just recently. And so there's an uproar over lunch. Mm-hmm. And why you're taking their freedom away. That's their freedom. That's, and we can talk about, and I do, talk about the communication and the social emotional, and then you can speak specifically about instances of getting shown pornographic images at lunch and all of that. But we also, in a classroom, it's one teacher to max 30 students. In a lunchroom, it's 500 to 4 administrators. And so how did your administrators navigate that? And did it ever subside?
Yeah. Yes. So I think that's why we're at a place where all 4 of our high schools going into year 3 said we have to have the tool.
Right.
Now that is immediately we still saw a difference in any of our schools, even if they were not implementing Yondr. But to your point, because our administrators want to take that weight off of the teachers, then it became an administrative weight. And the amount of time that our administrators were spent on you know, sweeping and classroom sweeps or at lunch, because ultimately if it's in that backpack, that draw for that 16-year-old, even though they say it's a phone-free environment, it's too much of a draw. Let me see what's been on TikTok, or let me see what's been on social media. So it was a constant battle. And I'm sure if you talk to Carrie Jones, the principal at Lake Highland, she will tell you last year for 22-23, she did not have the Yondr. And it was about 100 to 125 communications a day with parents, where they were picking up cell phones or addressing cell phone issues, versus last year, I think throughout the whole year, she had less than 20.
Yeah.
So you will see a difference. I think it gets a little bit better over time because kids figure out, like, okay, I can live without my phone. They also quickly figure out that because they don't have access, they're not all creating content all day long, and they don't feel like they're missing out. So it does get better, but I'd be lying to you if I didn't say it is still something that has to be a part of the daily routine of the administrators. Otherwise, you end up like what we were, where you have a policy, but it's not really being enforced because, you know, it's just too much.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Angela.
Thank you so much. I have a question for those of y'all in the Phone Free Schools movement bucket, not to put you in buckets, and then a question for Tabitha as well. I think I'm wondering from the Phone Free Schools movement perspective, are the Yondr pouches best practice, or are they effectively a middle ground, knowing that knowing what we know, what research tells us about the adolescent brain, and just having the phone in their backpack, even if it's in a Yondr pouch is still a distraction. If you're starting from scratch, which hopefully we will be in our district soon, does Phone Free Schools movement recommend something other than Yondr as best practice, or are you like, it works, do what works?
If you download our toolkit, you will see that we recommend Yondr as well as phone lockers and some of the less expensive options. I hear what you're saying. That's why it is extremely important the phone is turned off first before it goes in the Yondr pouch. But would it be more ideal for the phone to be off and away? I believe so.
Okay, and then I guess I saw this question in the chat as well for Tabitha, and I had the same question for those campuses that are not yet utilizing Yondr pouches. Can you tell us a few of the tools, the non-Yondr tools that have been effective? And do you also require students to store their like Apple Watches and AirPods and other? Is it any device that can connect to the internet and send and receive text messages?
Yeah, so any whether it's an Apple Watch or AirPods, the only headphones that we allow, we I don't know about all of those of you that are across the country, but in Texas, our state assessment is online. And so all of our interim assessments, we practice with that tool so that our students can get familiar with it. And so we do allow ear headphones, but they have to be where it's the plug-in. They can't be Bluetooth. We provide those, as well as then we allow students to bring their own as well, but everything else has to be in the pouch. What was the first part of your question? Oh, tools that other non-Yondr. So our junior high, so we have 4 junior highs that even going into year 4 now, year 3, they are not using Yondr. And they don't feel like they need to. They feel like the systems that they have in place are working. And really, they have a very simple system of it just is in their backpack. And they keep it in their backpack. The kids are not allowed to have it out. They've had pretty strong commitment from the teachers, so they're not having issues with some teachers letting them have it and some teachers not having it. So that seems to be working. Their campuses are smaller, and so it's a little bit easier to enforce as well. Now we'll continue to watch and see how it goes. One thing that's really important is it has never been superintendent administrative team, we're going to decide this for a campus. It has been here's the policy, here are the guidelines, here's how we're going to support you. Now, principal, tell us what you need. And that's why you've seen Yondr grow, because if the principal's not on board, if the principal doesn't see the value in Yondr, if they think they can manage it without Yondr, well, I, number one, don't want to invest the money. And number two, I don't want to overcomplicate something that doesn't need to be overcomplicated. And so this really has been at the request of principals. I saw a question, and y'all might be curious about this as well. Again, we have 3,000 students that walk through the halls of Lake Highlands every single day. And y'all, there is no bottleneck. We have duty stations. Students know as they come in, they hold up, and it's a thing of beauty to watch. They hold up the Yondr pouch, they have their phone, they put their phone in, that we make sure that it's off. The principal, every principal or staff member, they're the ones that lock. At the end of the day, we put out unlocking stations all across at different exits, and the kids unlock it. We don't have buses leaving any later than they used to, but I mean, kids are not late to class in the first period. It really is a seamless process.
We're going to shift to some of the other questions in the chat, Maleva.
Awesome, thank you. So Tabitha, we have a couple questions that I'm gonna kind of bucket together because they're all around, do you need additional staffing resources because of the implementation? Is it slowing down? And you know, you just answered it. Is it slowing down the movement entering into the building? And then another aspect to that is some campuses do allow their students to leave campus during lunch. Do you allow, if that's an aspect of your policy, do you allow them to unlock their phone during that time when they leave the campus and then relock it again when they come back?
Okay, so I'll try to, we do not have any kind of off-campus lunch. So that is not a challenge that we have to face. My guess is if that was something, I would hypothesize that we probably would allow them to unlock it before they left, and we would have them lock it back up. I would hypothesize, but again, that's not part of our current reality. No, we did not have to hire any additional staff. We use the same duty stations that we've always used. You know, we have SROs, we involve the SRO. I mean, you know, just how we would normally have done entrance. It's just now we're adding that pouch locking, but it's super fast. It's also a great way that we connect with the kids, I think, a little bit more intentionally. I think sometimes at duty station, the kids would just come in, and it was just kind of, you know, making sure that they got there safely. And I think now with the Yondr pouch, we actually like, how was your morning? And how, you know, great game last night. Like that, we've seen even more just general interaction between staff and students as they're coming in and locking that.
You hit them all.
Okay.
Perfect. Another question is, somebody's asking if you can clarify if students are taking their Yondr pouches home and bringing them back with them.
Yes, ma'am.
What happens if they forget it or destroy it?
Great question. So if the Yondr pouch is assigned to them, it's like their graphing calculator. It is checked out to them. And we had this in the first year. We would have some kids that, you know, they would, you know, try to, you know, cut it or manipulate. And you can, there's YouTube videos about trying to work the Yondr system. So we have it if a student forgets it, they have to check in their phone at the front office, and our front office keeps it, because again, if you walk in and you don't have that Yondr pouch, you're not walking into class. So if a kid walks in, I don't have my Yondr pouch, they go to the front office, and again, we have a seamless process. They check it in with the front office, they pick it up at the end of the day. If it's destroyed, or it, you know, something happens and it accidentally breaks, they get one, we provide one replacement in the course of a year. After that, then the student / parent / guardian, they have to replace that lost one.
Wonderful. Thank you, Tabitha. Another question is, what are people doing for after school activities? Is there a distinction between the on-campus activities or activities that require travel as far as your cell phone policy goes?
We do not. So like, let's just say they're traveling for Friday night football. We do not implement the Yondr at those times. So if they're heading to an event or something like that, we do find that communication with a parent, if, you know, they need to be picked up or locations have changed, or we have to change, you know, game time or location meetup or that type of thing, that we do allow cell phone use at those events.
Wonderful. Another question is around, what are the expectations for adult cell phone use during the day?
Yeah, that has been a 3-year journey as well. We don't ask staff to put them in Yondr. And the main reason we don't do that is that is our notification system for implementing certain kinds of safety drills. And so what we have done, however, is our administrative team, as part of our walkthrough form, we are holding teachers accountable in terms of if we're coming in and we're evaluating and we're seeing that you're on your cell phone, you're texting, that type of thing, we are going to hold our teachers accountable for it. And we've just made it, it's part of the professional expectations. It's in our staff handbook, it's in our staff expectations. There are what we call T-tests. It's our evaluation standards, and we've tied it directly to T-test standards as well. We've not, knock on wood, we've not had any complaints or had, a parent or a student say that we've had a teacher abusing it, but we're very conscious about messaging that.
Wonderful. We have 2 more questions in the chat I'm going to address, but I also just want to, if anybody else wants to raise their hand and ask questions, we have about 3 minutes left. So another question is, we have CTE programs at off-campus buildings. Students attend partial day at those locations. Do you have anything similar, and do those buildings also have Yondr practices in place?
Yes, so we actually have, for example, for our health science program, our 4 high schools, we have our students actually meet at a working hospital, and they've given us a wing of their building. And yes, we implement Yondr at that site as well.
Wonderful. Final question in the chat is, did you need to replace phones at lunch with something else, like cards, coloring? They know that Jonathan Haidt recommends replacing phones with something else if you're doing that.
Yes, yes, and yes. So we've done a lot of things. If you, really at all of our campuses, like, there are more games than you can even imagine. So our kids love to play chess. They love to play Uno. I don't know if you've ever played the game Left, Center, Right. They love that game, and they will do it like parts of their lunch. They like they'll put in potato chips as part of our Cheez-Its or goldfish. And they'll play Left, Center, Right with that. So yes, we have lots of opportunities for for kids to be involved and be engaged, so they're not just, because again, it was awkward in the beginning, like all of a sudden I'm forced to talk to you. And so that was something we were very intentional with.
Final question that just came through. It says, very minor question, but do you write the names of the students on the pouches, or is that not necessary?
We don't, but it's really fun to see how our students decorate them, because it's their pouch. And so they have an opportunity to kind of make it their own and put on their own branding. Some kids don't care and don't invest any time or energy into it, but others really do. So we give them that freedom and that flexibility to do that.
I think Yondr might even have a competition on decorating the
do.
pouch.
They do.
Wonderful. We don't have any more questions in the chat, and we're just about at time. If nobody else has anything they want to raise their hand for, if you have questions and you didn't get a chance to ask them, or if you think of something later, you can always email the Phone Free School Movement team at info@phonefreeschoolmovement.org. I am going to bring up our final slide just so that we can let you guys know some closing information. Sorry. Our next Community of Practice webinar is August 27th at noon. Our guest speaker is School Board Chairman Chris Cope from the Warren County Schools in Tennessee. We will have the registration link up on our website again for that. We'll also email out to everybody who registered and who attended today the link to watch this recording and this information as well, so that you know when the next one is. These are just wonderful ways for you guys as administrators to connect, to learn from somebody else who has implemented a policy successfully, so that you guys can ask questions of them and learn from their process, and also of us from the Phone Free School Movement team, so that we can help you guys go from where you currently are now to where you are, trying to get to as far as implementing these best practices into your school building. We're really excited to be doing this. Tabitha, we really want to thank you for your expertise, for being our guest speaker today. It's just been wonderful to see the engagement, to see how many of you came on today to hear from her. And again, we'll follow up with the recording. The recording will also be up on our website, and the next registration link for our August 27th Community of Practice call will be going out shortly. Thank you from our team to you guys. And again, thank you, Tabitha, for your time.